One of the famous examples, like a lot of the engineers, they have their code and they push the code for it to save it in S3, but they always forget to remove the credentials that they were using when they're running the code. So you'll end up having a very powerful and sensitive information saved in AWS S3. So how do we solve this? How we can give you visibility, and what Macie do? This is our approach. First, we classify the data. By classifying the data, we give you information about what do you have in Amazon S3, where the sensitive information are located, in what bucket, in what object, and in what prefix. So great, now I know what do I have in S3. The second thing that you need to do, who has access to this information? And that's what Amazon Macie comes and analyze the IAM policies at the bucket level, the ACL policies at the bucket level, and even take it one step further and focus on the object as well, and analyze the ACL at the object level. So now you know what do you have saved. And the second part, now you know who has access to these information. Now you can answer questions such as, do I have any sensitive information stored in object or in a bucket that is publicly accessible? And if you have compliance regulations, or you have in the industry that highly regulated, that you need to provide evidence for your auditors, you can use Macie by showing them, here are my sensitive information, and here how it's configured for access. And you can show them over time that you never receive alert that the access has changed. In this way, you can, with few clicks, achieve compliance. So now you know where what data do you have, how it's configured for access. The third part is who's actually accessing this data and how they are accessing it. Is there any unusual behavior now I have in my account? And is any user accessing this data in a suspicious way? To answer this, we analyze all the CloudTrail events, the management API, as well as the S3 object level events. In this way, we can build a profile for each user. And here the user, we're talking about IAM user and IAM roles. We build the profile for them, and we start monitoring how they are behaving in the account. We run all their activities in a predictive analytics engine, and we try to predict their future behavior. And once the new API comes, we compare it. And if there is any mismatch, we can alert, say, there is a suspicious and unusual event. So this event could be a false positive, because the user got assigned a new job where they have to do a new activities that require them, for example, to download 100 of S3 objects. On a regular day, they only download one. This will be flagged. However, the security team, they look at it like, oh, that makes sense that Macie reported it, but this is a false positive, but we understand why it was raised. So here are the first question that Macie help you to answer. Where my sensitive data is located? By doing the whole classification. The second question is, who has access to my sensitive data? By analyzing all the IAM policy and ACL policies. And finally, who is actually accessing my data, and is there unusual activities in my environment? And that is done by analyzing all the CloudTrail events. So now I'm going to move on and change my screen to go to the actual product, and I'll give you a quick brief of the dashboards. And all right, so when you log in, you can see that this is the dashboard that you can get. You look at it, and the first part, we highlight the critical assets. Critical assets here are S3 objects that they have a risk level. They have sensitive information that we give it a high risk, 8, 9, and 10. And in this way, instead of looking across billions of objects that you have in your environment, you focus only on these 36,000 objects to make sure that they are well protected, and you know how are used and how the users are accessing this information. The second one is all the CloudTrail event processed. So you see here we have like 100 million events of CloudTrail that they got processed in this account. All these events are grouped in what we call a user session. User session is 5 minutes aggregation of all the CloudTrail events for each principal ID. And principal ID is I am user or I am role. We group all this information, we aggregate it, and we create a record and feed it back to our analytic engine. And the analytic engine takes it and start doing the analysis on it. If you have a specific rule that it match on the data received, you receive an alert. Otherwise, it's kept in the backend, and you can go from the UI and query it and receive the information. The final one is the dashboard for the users. Here we categorize the users based on what they are actually doing and not based on what type of access they have. So for example, if you have an admin, they have access to all your account, but you might see them in a lower type of users from security perspective because this specific user is doing only read-only access. So they are not very sensitive, they're not doing any sensitive activities, so we put them as a lower priority. And we highlight in the platinum type of users, the users who've been doing a mutating activities, such as deleting a bucket, terminating an EC2 instance, or attaching a policy, creating a user. All these powerful APIs get highlighted and it moves the user to a higher rank. So as a security engineer, if I want to start doing any investigation, I can start with these type of users and see what type of activity they are doing and if there's anything suspicious. So now moving on to the main dashboard offered by Macie. The first one is giving you a good understanding of what do you have in your content. And you can change the severity level by changing the risk. So if I move it up to the 8, and I see here it got filtered differently. So quick example, you see that we have detected certificates, we saw Cisco router config files, we saw RSA private key embedded in one of these objects, and you have like access key and AWS credentials. So let's take one of the examples. Let's double click on the AWS Secret Key. You see that the UI takes us directly to the research page. In the research page, you see we have the query where we research our data that's already available for us. And I scroll down all the way, and I see I have 10 matching results on my query. So I have 10 objects across my Amazon S3 environment that they have AWS Secret Key in them. So what you do is just like you click on this, and you deep dive even more into this specific incident. We give you the account ID, the bucket name, the owner of this bucket, the risk level of the sensitivity, and we see here is like 10. And we give you all the matching regexes, the regular expression that we match on your data. And as you can see here is only access. Why? Because we actually save access. We don't save any content. We just classify, we monitor, and once we detect, it's just we raise a flag in our metadata, and we don't store any content. So now a security engineer might ask, great, I have an object, I have a secret key in it. How is configured for access? I want to know who had the chance to have their hand on these keys. So what we do, we make it easy by showing here the ACL policy attached to the specific object. As we can see here, only like Macie admins, they have this access to this file, so it was relatively least privileged access, so we don't have this big problem. If the security team decides to remove the secret key or remove the whole object, we made it easy for them to access this object by offering the URL required to plug it in the browser to locate it. And if you prefer CLI access, we give you the specific command in order to locate the object. The second question, it can be the security engineers like, great, who put this object in S3? And who has accessed it in the past 90 days? To answer this question is just, you have to click search CloudTrail activities related to this specific object. And here we have, I don't know what I do, just get to go back to it. Yeah, the internet connection is not that great. All right, let's try again. All right. All right. So now the Wi-Fi cooperated with us. So as you can see that who has accessed all the specific file are grouped in these sessions. You can see this is session number 1, that the service has get access to it in order to classify it, and then the specific user did a get object on it, and the other activities that they happen. And here we give you a summary of all the activities and the location and so forth. So now moving on to other type of dashboard. The second dashboard, we provide in it all the S3 objects that they are classified and in what bucket we put them based on the classification. So you see that we detected some source code. We detected the top 40 programming language in GitHub. So we can easily, if we have some code, we can tell you if it is Scala or if it is like PHP or if it is like C programming. And as well, we can detect encryption keys, RSA private keys, as is shown on this specific picture. So the other type of dashboard we have is PII. So in this one, we focus on the PII, and we group them into 2 different dashboards. The first one on what we call priority. So if we detect a file, and in this file we have only 1 credit card number of it, we're going to flag it for sure, but we're going to give it a low priority, comparing to a file that has 100 credit card numbers and hundreds of addresses, that if this specific file gets leaked or people they get access to it, unauthorized access to it, you have a bigger damage to your, basically, to your business and to your reputation. So that's why we highlight for you the objects that you need to focus first on them, and we give them higher priority. And if you want to investigate very specific type of PII, all the PII detected in your account will be highlighted in this specific dashboard, and you can go deep dive into one of these. So for example, you can go investigate where are the objects that has credit cards number, or the objects that they have addresses, and you can get the list, and if you want to remove them, you can export the list from Macie and put it in any script in order to remove the objects. Moving on to the next dashboard, here we focus on the ACL. So on the access itself, we look about it and we see if what type of access you have in your account. And for example, here we have objects that they are globally accessible. You can locate them by clicking on this, go to the research page, get the list, and investigate more. The next dashboard is the dashboard focused on the CloudTrail. We highlight for you the most sensitive APIs in your account, and we tell you who did these API by highlighting for you the identities that they call these APIs. We treat the errors in the environment in a different way. We look at the error as we focus on it because it gives you a lot of information regarding security of your account. The most famous type of error that's interesting to be monitored is access denied. So you see if anyone trying to call, trying to get access to stuff that they don't have access, it might give you indications of a security incident in your environment. Here we have a nice dashboard that gives you a nice map where we take all the IP addresses of all the API, and we geolocate it for you. And in this way, you look at this dashboard, and you can answer questions easily. For example, is my content always accessed from North America? Why do I have activities in Japan? I don't have anyone working in Japan, and I don't have any application that it is running from Japan. So why I have all this activity generated from there? So you can drill down, locate the users, locate the credentials, and take actions on them. The next dashboard is the dashboard where we give you the CloudTrail events one by one. And if you have a specific investigation about a API call, specific API call, you can come to the specific dashboard, locate the API, and you can drill down and research it to find all the instances and the identities that they called these APIs. Because we do geolocation on the IP addresses, we as well, in the same time, we match it with the carrier that are providing these IP addresses. In this way, you can have the list of all the ISPs that the user was using in order to access your environment. As you can see, the majority of all the accesses are coming from the Amazon environment because it's like internal Amazon account. This is my personal account. And you see that there's another ISP used in order to access it. So in this way, you can build some rules in your account, say, I trust all accesses coming from these two ISPs, and alert me whenever there's an access coming from this ISP. So not limiting the access to a geolocation, but you as well, you're trusting very specific type of IP addresses within a geolocation. And the final dashboard here, we're looking at the dashboard where we highlight all the identities that they did activities in your account. As you can see, we have IAM users, we have the roles, the root account user, and we have the AWS accounts. The AWS accounts are the accounts used to do cross-account communication. So to highlight for you how the cross-account communication and what type of activity they are doing in your environment. And finally, the AWS services that you give them access or they are doing on your behalf API calls. A quick example of AWS service could be the auto scaling of your EC2 instances. They go and spin up EC2 on your behalf and terminate them on your behalf based on the rule that you put on them. So all these API calls can be highlighted and it can be seen in this section. So quickly, I want to highlight on the type of the settings. So here are the types that we use to classify. You have regexes, you have themes in it. You can glean from the file extension itself, and you can classify data based on it, and you can classify based on the content type. As well, for the protect data, you can give a weight or risk value for each API call. If your application uses DynamoDB, for example, and it is very important for you, you can go put all the API calls of DynamoDB, give them higher risk. And if you have an application that doesn't use DynamoDB, so you can go lower the risk of it to at least whenever we alert you, we focus on the services that they are important for your environment. And finally, on the basic alerts, these are alerts, what we call them basic, but they are very powerful. Why? Because you are building a query that getting data from multiple sources. Source number one is the results of the classification of your content. Source number two are the analysis on the IP, on the IAM policies and the ACL policies that they are attached on the bucket and the objects. And the third source of data is the CloudTrail events that they got aggregated and analyzed and made available for you. So if we can build a query, for example, let me know if I have any sensitive data saved in a bucket configured for least privilege and accessed from outside of North America. Because you have all the source of information, you can build a query like this, and you receive alert when anyone accesses this data from outside of North America. So this is what I have prepared for today. Do you have any questions?
I think we're all set.
Pardon? Okay, the question is how's the pricing? The pricing is divided to two dimensions. The CloudTrail processing is $4 per 1,000,000 event, and you have the first 100,000 event is free. per account, per region. And when you get to the processing, the classification of the data, you're looking at, we charge only on the data that we run the model on it. So if you have, for example, the object that is 100 meg, we extracted information from it equivalent to 20 meg, because there's a lot of picture in it and all so forth. We're going to charge you only 20 meg on it. And the charge on these processed data is $5. It's a one-time charge because we classified the object once, and you're never going to incur any charges after that. So if you have a bucket, for example, of 100 gigabyte, if depends on the data that's in it, on average base, what we're seeing now is around 30% of the size will be actually processed. So you're looking at only 30 gigabyte to be charged. And this is one-time charge, and you have now a catalog, a detailed catalog about your data saved in S3. Pardon? Per process gig. Yeah. If the data is? Okay, so the question is if the data is changing on a daily basis in it. So what you can do is when you classify it, all existing objects get classified, and every new object getting into the bucket, we detect the put object API in a CloudTrail, and we automatically classify it for you. And we run all the rules or what we have decided to alert you on, and if we detect, we receive an alert. So for example, if you said, let me know if any sensitive data end up in my public bucket. So as soon as you put an object in it, we detect the activity, we take it, schedule it, process it, detect that it's a sensitive data in a public bucket, you receive alert. The alert, you can see it here in the dashboard, or you can receive it from the CloudWatch event. So in a CloudWatch event, all alerts are sent there, and you can decide to hook it to a SNS topic, or you can run a small Lambda function to remediate and automate some remediation. I saw some customers, they automate some remediations by selecting a list of all the buckets that they consider very sensitive, and they monitor if we alert them that any object in these buckets changed to be publicly accessible, the Lambda function kicks in and reinforces a new ACL on this object that gives least privilege access. In this way, if you have any mistake that it resulted in data leak, this one is, or the data exposure, is only limited to minutes to be remediated versus to go unnoticed for months or till someone notice that the configuration of the application has changed. Yes? The data. So the question is, can you apply Macie prior for the data to get into S3? So it's not a upfront proxy style in the front of it. It's after you put the object, we react on it. So we always work in the back end of it, and you only monitor and alert you on it. It's not the type of a prevention or protecting from the first. Make sense? All right. Thank you all.
All right. Thank you so much, everybody.